It is just after 11 a.m. on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. I just woke up like 15 minutes ago. I have been completely wiped out. I had a 20-hour day yesterday where I barely slept, had to be up at 5 a.m., didn't get home until past 9, continued to work on some career-related tasks and obligations until 11:30, said forget it, and then passed out at midnight. And it has been completely silent, very quiet throughout this building this morning. There's also been no noise out on the street. And as soon as I sat up very quietly in this bed 15 minutes ago and reached for my coffee, some mentally disturbed psycho pig directly below in 76 started violently slamming and banging things directly below my bed. And they've been doing that intermittently ever since. There's also the sudden and resumed use of a directed energy weapon to electronically harass me over the last 10 minutes while I've been sitting here quietly trying to sip my coffee and get ready for another day. The person directly below has an extensive history of making deliberate and pointed, targeted slamming and banging noises directly below my bed. This is happening like literally a few feet beneath this headboard right here. They're hitting the wall that is behind my headboard, one floor below. This is some sort of prison code to let me know that they are engaging in what is happening in here, meaning the use of a directed energy weapon. Over the last 5 days, I have left probably 10 voicemails for the Greenville group and 3 emails regarding the fact that someone has been using a Wi-Fi blocker in this unit that I extensively illustrated and demonstrated in multiple videos, showing that the Wi-Fi signal in this unit was strong, but that a blocking device was being used on my devices to prevent my devices from connecting to the Wi-Fi that I pay for every month to access in this unit. And the Wi-Fi that I pay for to access in this unit is being provided by Comcast throughout the entire building as one giant building-wide service that is not restricted to certain corners or areas of the building. So I would go down the hall 15 to 20 feet away from this unit, and my devices, all of them, would automatically and immediately connect to the Xfinity Wi-Fi in the hallway or in the front stairwell or in the rear stairwell. My point regarding 76 directly below is that whenever the Wi-Fi to my devices would be cut, the person directly below 76 would start making slamming and banging noises right before the Wi-Fi would cut out on my devices. This person has lived directly below for years. They have a history of coming up to my door and violently slamming rods and sticks against that door to try to break it down, the pieces of which I still have stored in plastic bags as evidence regarding those violent assaults against my door. This person also violently assaulted me when I opened the door one time and yanked that person. It's a violent, giant transgender individual. I can't tell if they're male to female, female to male. They're just like 6'1" or 6'2", and look like a water buffalo, basically. Obviously, they're angry and miserable because they got some kind of hormonal issues going on there. They yanked the phone out of my hand. They threw pieces of a vacuum cleaner at my head that they were holding while they were standing outside of my door, pounding on it. I mean, this person is not normal, but they seem to demonstrate and deliberately demonstrate immediate moment-by-moment knowledge of what I happen to do in the privacy of this living space, even when what I am doing is completely silent. Yesterday morning, Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, I made a video at approximately 7:30 a.m. where I was sitting at my table, quietly having coffee, listening to some soft jazz on my phone, and dragging my keys around on my table, something that nobody should have had knowledge of one floor down. I can't hear what goes on one floor down because there is an insane amount of very dense, tightly packed, heavy building materials in that floor right there that hold up the floor and prevent things from falling through. This is an extremely dense, tightly packed floor. And so when the person directly below in 76 starts violently slamming some kind of a heavy, blunt object directly against their ceiling, which is my floor, directly below the table where I happen to be sitting, listening to some soft jazz music and dragging my keys on my table at 7:20 in the morning, which is normal business hours for many people. You have the right to make 75 decibels of noise in a residential area after 7 a.m. This piece of shit is doxing the fact that they have knowledge of silent or almost silent activities that I perform in my living space that nobody who lives one floor below and is separated from my unit by some extremely dense, heavy, thick building materials should have any knowledge of. But not only does this piece of shit have immediate knowledge of what I do in the privacy of this living space, even when it is silent, like sitting up in bed and sipping a coffee, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're slamming and banging things directly below my bed when they've been completely silent for hours now. Well, they are doxing the use of surveillance devices in this unit. And they're not shy, obviously, about letting me know that they can have knowledge of the fact that I'm sitting in my bathroom quietly trying to use my toilet at 3:30 in the morning. And that's when they start hitting or slamming things in the area below my bathroom at 3:30 in the morning. There's also some psycho that sits in the bathroom of 78 and does the exact same thing. So I'm thinking, once again, it's the same person that isn't literally sitting in their unit all day long. They travel between unit 78 and 76. And I've noted that. The same exact identical pattern of wall slamming and banging and activity-specific surveillance-based violence against that wall right there also occurs directly below in 76, based on the same exact set of activities that I happen to engage in the privacy of this living space that nobody should have any knowledge of, but that they obviously have knowledge of and also deliberately and violently respond to on a moment-by-moment basis for purposes of harassment, violence, intimidation, and physical and emotional harm. So that just happened. If it continues, I'll call the Greenville Group. This person in 76 should be in prison, and I'm thinking they're not in prison because they're transgender, and their actual prison is Unit 76. This building gets used as a holding pen by the Department of Mental Health and other state agencies on a unit-specific basis. It's not the entire building, it's unit by unit, and that is very dangerous for tenants who are not violent criminals, who are not sex offenders, who are not psychopaths, because then the psychopaths and the sex offenders and the violent offenders who do get housed kind of sprinkled throughout this building by the Greenville Group. Well, normal tenants tend to get targeted by these people, or at least female tenants. There's not very many female tenants in this building. I think there's only one on this floor. Her name is Fanny, and she literally lives in a corner, and I don't think anybody bothers her over there. But for some reason, they like to harass me because I don't look like everybody else in this building. And this is a population that has a problem with anybody who doesn't look or act exactly like they do. That is a very low IQ, very dysregulated type of functioning, but it is a mob mentality and a bullying mindset that persons with low IQ and visible behavioral issues carry throughout their lives. And that's why they end up in prison. And that's why they end up in the Department of Mental Health auspices. And then they end up getting housed in buildings like this one where the landlord doesn't want to step up their game. So instead, they just rent out individual units to state agencies who don't know where to put the crazy people who violently assault others and who are sex offenders and molest children, such as Jasmine Irizarry, such as Jason DaCosta, such as Mark Collins, such as Charles Thomas, such as Christopher Thomas. I don't know if it's the same person or two different individuals who behave very similarly, such as a violent psycho thug directly below 76. I don't even know their name. They look like a water buffalo, and they're constantly slamming and banging things against my floor and have been doing so for years. That person, they're obviously a pedophile as well. Every time I watch any movie that involves having children in it, like, let's see, one of my favorite movies, Home Alone, that person gets violent and psychotic when any child in that movie shows up on the screen. Even though I'm watching the movie in the privacy of my living space, it's a Christmas movie, it's a classic, and for some reason, it triggers the violent psycho directly below 76 to becoming violent every time I watch the movie Home Alone, because it's about a little boy who goes up against some violent criminals who want to harm him and his family, But I do think the person below is a pedophile. I mean, they get violent anytime I talk to like my nieces and nephews over the phone or happen to mention them in phone conversations that I have in the privacy of this living space. And then when I mention their names, this psycho thug directly below starts slamming and banging things again in some sort of prison code to communicate to me that he or she or it has knowledge of what I am talking about and of what I happen to be doing in the privacy of this living space. I mean, the Greenville group themselves have referred to Jasmine Irizarry, who I suspect is either in 76, hanging out with the person in 76, or intermittently goes back and forth between 76 and 78, that she is a IT expert and a surveillance expert for the Greenville group. And they're not shy about admitting the fact that they're using Jasmine Irizarry, who could be the person directly below, because right now, as I'm mentioning this name, I am getting electronically assaulted once again with the same directed energy device that Jasmine Irizarry has admitted in written comments that she is getting paid to use, and that she is using it on a tripod mounted at my head, which is where I immediately start feeling its effects. So she's correct about that detail that nobody should have knowledge of, but that she herself has described and written about in her comments on my social media page. Well, then we have a problem. Then we have a situation where this living space is not a private living space. It is a public forum where every thing that I happen to say or do is doxed and streamed to the violent offenders in 76 and 78 and throughout the entire building as well, and then used for purposes of harassment, violence, physical harm, and all kinds of other nefarious reasons, such as trying to get me to move out. I mean, that's really the ultimate goal of the Greenville group. It has been the ultimate goal of the Greenville group for at least 8 years now, is to force any normal, functional, out-of-pocket paying tenant out of the building. The Greenville group does not like tenants who pay out of pocket because they get more money for housing violent offenders and psychos than they do from tenants who pay market rate rent out of their own pocket. And that's the math right there. That is the bottom line. That is the accounting deficit. They don't want out-of-pocket paying tenants living in this building. They don't like white females. They don't like anyone who isn't a violent minority criminal, and they will go after you using those violent minority criminals to force you out one way or another.